Vroom.
Zoom.
Hello, and welcome back to whenever you go and spray something bug spray, perfume, sunscreen spray, anything, keep your mouth closed.
No, Maddie, this is an F1 podcast. Also, I fear that's common sense. Hello, and welcome back to 17 to 1. My name's Julia. I know a lot about F1.
My name is Maddie, and Julia will no longer let me steal the intro.
The universe has been righted, and it was the Belgian Grand Prix last week. So it's time for our weekly recap series, Champions and Crashouts, where we go over who had a great race weekend and who had a not so great race weekend. As always, we're going to start off with our champions. Maddie, do you want to take it away with one of our champions of last weekend?
One of our champions and one of our favorite ones because he's just so funny. You might call us McLaren Glazers, but surprisingly, we're not, is Oscar Piastri.
So true, girl. We actually really don't like McLaren in this household, but we do have a soft spot in our hearts for Oscar. And he had another great weekend, from cinching pole in the sprint race with one of the largest margins of the season so far to, I mean, he came in second in the sprint race. He was passed by Max Verstappen, so he did lose a couple of points for that. But then pulling that same exact Max move on Lando the following day to get first place in the Grand Prix and then win that race. You know, he's a man that learns from his mistakes, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about Oscar.
It was fun to watch. Little fun fact, the FIA was looking out for me because I was not going to wake up at like 6:30, 6:45, even 7 in the morning to watch this race. I was just going to watch it at work. But I woke up to my friends talking about the delay, and then they're like, it's starting now. I was like, that's an hour-long delay. Long story short, I did get to watch this race, actually. Moving on to our next champion, we can discuss Max. He had a great sprint race. His qualifying was not too bad. Coming from an F1 newbie, I didn't think it was bad. Experts might have different opinions and thoughts on that, but he managed to hold his own. I do think it was disappointing that he never managed to pass Charles. I would have liked to see that play out a little more. But for the way his past races had been going, this one was a good one for him.
I agree. I was really expecting a bit more Charles and Max battles on the day of. I mean, Charles did a great job of keeping Max behind him, but that whole sequence really only lasted the first 10 laps or so. And then there really wasn't any conflict between those two for the rest of the race, so that was a little disappointing. But I would say, as a whole, the whole weekend, Max did very well in the qualifying sessions. He won the sprint race. He did about as good as he could during the actual race, considering he was yet again on the wrong setup for the wrong weather. So I will give that to him.
Do we have any more champions?
Speaking of, we have Charles Leclerc, who just loves to find himself on podiums sometimes. Again, he did a great job defending from Max in the Grand Prix. He did have a bit of a moment where he yelled at Brian again over the radio.
Leave me alone, please. Like I have got information and they're going to need you to close. I have too much information.
And we do so love those moments. But on the whole, I think that was a good weekend for Charles.
Yeah, those moments are so funny because Charles just camera wise, I mean, obviously we're not like his best friends outside of F1 and the camera personality he might have. He just seems so like poised and put together and like very princely, I think. So to hear his radios where he's like, just leave me alone, or his like, I think that's one of the reasons why when he has a crash out, he is just so relatable because there is just all those filters are suddenly gone and it makes it hilarious.
It's so good. It's so good. Charles Sands, PR Max is chef's kiss.
Might I also add, he's also a champion because he got to ride the private jet with the love of his life again, Carlos Sainz.
So true.
The divorce is not real.
Divorce is a sham, everybody.
Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
I do believe that might bring us to our first crash out, who is somebody that I almost forgot had a bad race, and that is Carlos Sainz, who his teammate had an exceptionally good race. Actually, Alex probably should have been on our champion list. But unfortunately, Carlos, after having a very good sprint race, then had a very bad Grand Prix.
Yeah, Alex did wonderful. Which brings us into Lewis Hamilton. He has a little bit of a net neutral because his race went so well, but everything else did terribly. I don't hate Lewis. I'm neutral towards him, but I did feel sad for him after his qualifying when he managed to um get into Q2, but then he took the turn too wide and he was like, "Am I out?" And they're like, "Yeah." I did feel bad for him at that moment.
Yeah, it was two bad qualifying sessions in a row because the sprint qualifying, he was also out in Q1, I believe. But I think that was a problem with the car. And
Mm.
then for the Grand Prix, it was entirely his own fault. He went over the track limits, got his lap time deleted, had to start from the very back. I will say one of the most entertaining parts of that race was watching him pass a bunch of people in that first 10 laps when it was still kind of wet on the ground and he was a man on a mission. He was like, I'm fucking getting into the top 10. And he did it within like a couple of laps before he got stuck behind Alex for the rest of time. And that was lovely to see. So I did really
Yeah.
appreciate that from Lewis. Overall, not a good weekend for him.
Not a good weekend. I'm not going to lie. I did briefly think that was going to turn into another like Max thing of like the Max in Brazil of he was going to go from P all the way in the back to like first place. I was really like, what the heck? Little unfortunate that didn't happen, but would have been so cool if it did. Brings us to another. We have a little bit of a net neutral. The teams Red Bull and V Carb managed to kind of have an honorary mention because they got everyone up into Q1. I don't ever remember that happening with my time as being a fan. But unfortunately, Yuki and Isaac did get screwed over with the pit strategy, which honestly, I was so heartbroken to see that happen because they started well and they were both doing well, holding their own. And so to see that strategy just kind of screw them over, it was disappointing because I would have loved to see what could have happened had everything gone perfectly.
I agree. It was just unfortunate pit stop timing for them. And I'll have to go back and watch it because I don't know how much was like them needing to keep Yuki out another lap because they brought Max in and like how that all went down. But it was just unfortunate that that did made that did end up with him outside of the points. So alas, we'll get him next time, Yuki.
You're on the up and up, buddy.
Which brings us to our last crash out, I believe, which is little Kimmy Antonelli. It just wasn't a good weekend for him. I don't know exactly what happened during the qualifying session, but he did not qualify well in either one of the two races. He was pretty down on himself as a result. It's a lot of pressure for an 18-year-old kid, and he wasn't able to make up those spots during the race either. I mean, the Mercedes itself has some problems. I think George finished P5, and it it's not the best. So definitely something to look at. I think Mercedes said that they are going to be looking at the car extensively, hopefully. And hopefully Kimmy's, gonna make a turnaround next weekend and he's not gonna let it weigh on him all too much.
Obviously, I'm not an F1 driver, but as an athlete, like you said, I hope he doesn't let this go too much to his head. But it definitely is stressful and it can be nerve wracking. And maybe the pressure is getting to him, especially with all the rumors circulating and floating around. But if hopefully he can hone in for next week and then he'll have 3 weeks to, I think, refresh and regroup and really get back into the zone if he's still struggling by then. Hope not, though.
Hopefully. You can do it, Kimmy. I believe in you.
We love you, Kimmy.
Little Kimmy Kimchi.
On that note, this has been 17 to 1. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.